Ah, the relationship between international politics and economics IPE. Introduction. The field of international political economy IPE stands at the intersection of two powerful disciplines, international relations IR and economics. As the world grows increasingly interconnected through trade, finance, and diplomatic networks, understanding how political power and economic interests shape each other has become more vital than ever. IPE explores the reciprocal relationship between states and markets, power and wealth, national interests and global interdependence. This essay delves into the core principles of IPE, examining how political decisions influence economic outcomes and vice versa. Through historical context, theoretical approaches, and real-world case studies, we will explore the dynamic interplay between international politics and economics. 1. Historical evolution of IPE. The relationship between politics and economics has existed for centuries, but IPE as a formal discipline emerged during the 1970s, particularly in response to the collapse of the Bretton Woods system and the oil shocks of that decade. Before then, classical economists like Adam Smith and David Ricardo emphasized the benefits of free trade and market competition, often advocating for minimal state interference. However, thinkers like Friedrich List and Karl Marx recognized that economic activity is deeply embedded in political structures and power relations. In the post-World War II era, the international economic order was governed by institutions like the International Monetary Fund (IMF), the World Bank, and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade (GATT), which later became the World Trade Organization (WTO). These institutions were created under U.S. leadership to stabilize the global economy and promote liberal economic values. However, the rise of developing countries, financial crises, and geopolitical competition have continually reshaped this landscape, reinforcing the importance of IPE in understanding global affairs. 2. Theoretical approaches to IPE. Three major theoretical frameworks dominate the study of IPE: liberalism, realism or mercantilism, and Marxism or critical theories. Each offers a distinct perspective on the relationship between politics and economics. Liberalism. Liberal IPE theory emphasizes the efficiency and mutual benefits of free markets and open trade. It posits that economic interdependence fosters peace, cooperation, and global prosperity. States are seen as rational actors, seeking to maximize welfare through integration into global markets. Institutions such as the WTO and IMF play a crucial role in facilitating cooperation and reducing transaction costs. Liberals argue that globalization enhances efficiency, encourages innovation, and benefits consumers worldwide. B. Realism, mercantilism. In contrast, realism views the international system as anarchic, where states compete for power and security. Realist or mercantilist approaches to IPE prioritize national interests and state power over market efficiency. Economic tools, such as tariffs, sanctions, and investment restrictions, are used to protect domestic industries and achieve strategic goals. Realists argue that excessive dependence on global markets can undermine national sovereignty, and they often advocate for protectionist policies to guard against economic vulnerability. C. Marxism, critical theories. Marxist and critical approaches focus on structural inequalities in the global economy. These theories argue that capitalism inherently generates exploitation, and that the global economic order reinforces the dominance of wealthy countries and multinational corporations over poorer nations. Concepts such as dependency theory and world systems theory highlight how historical patterns of colonization and imperialism continue to shape unequal global economic relations. For critical theorists, IPE is not neutral, but a contested field, reflecting class struggle and systemic injustice. 3. Key areas of interaction between politics and economics. The relationship between international politics and economics manifests across multiple domains. Here, we examine several key areas. Trade policy and economic sanctions. Trade policy is a primary arena where political decisions shape economic outcomes. Governments negotiate trade agreements, impose tariffs, and use quotas to regulate imports and exports. Political considerations often override economic logic. For instance, trade barriers may be imposed to protect strategic industries or respond to geopolitical threats. Economic sanctions are another example, where political objectives drive economic policy. Sanctions target states or entities to coerce political change. U.S. Sanctions against Iran and Russia. While sanctions can exert significant economic pressure, their effectiveness in achieving political goals is debated and often depends on international cooperation and enforcement. Global financial governance. The governance of the global financial system through institutions like the IMF and World Bank is deeply political. While these institutions aim to promote stability and development, they also reflect the interests and power of major donor countries. For instance, IMF conditionality often requires recipient countries to implement structural reforms, which can have profound social and political consequences. Moreover, financial crises often trigger political debates about regulation, austerity, and sovereignty. The 2008 global financial crisis exposed the vulnerabilities of unregulated markets and led to increased scrutiny of international banking and financial practices. Foreign direct investment and multinational corporations. Multinational corporations, MNCs, are powerful economic actors that operate across borders. While they bring capital and technology to host countries, they also pose challenges to state sovereignty. Governments must balance attracting foreign investment with protecting local industries, labor rights, and environmental standards. Investment treaties and dispute settlement mechanisms, e.g., Investor-State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS, reflect the complex relationship between private economic interests and public policy. Critics argue that such mechanisms can undermine democratic decision-making by allowing corporations to challenge national regulations. Economic development and political stability. Economic development is often a key goal of political regimes, especially in the global South. However, the paths to development vary widely, influenced by colonial legacies, institutional capacity, and geopolitical alliances. Development strategies ranging from export-led growth in East Asia to resource-based economies in Africa highlight how political choices and international partnerships shape economic trajectories. Conversely, economic crises and inequality can fuel political instability, social unrest, and authoritarianism. The Arab Spring, for instance, was triggered in part by economic grievances, such as unemployment and food insecurity. 4. Case studies in IPE. The China-U.S. trade war. The escalating trade tensions between the U.S. and China exemplify how geopolitical rivalry shapes economic policy. Under the Trump administration, the U.S. imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, citing unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. China retaliated with its own tariffs. Beyond economic competition, the conflict reflects deeper concerns about technological dominance, national security, and global leadership. Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Western economic sanctions. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Western countries imposed sweeping economic sanctions, including freezing central bank assets, restricting technology exports, and banning energy imports. These measures aim to weaken Russia's economy and deter further aggression. However, they also had ripple effects on global energy markets. inflation, and food security, demonstrating the interconnectedness of geopolitics and economic stability. C. The European Union and economic integration. The EU represents a unique experiment in political and economic integration. Through common policies on trade, competition, and monetary union, EU member states have ceded aspects of sovereignty for collective economic benefit. However, the EU has also faced tensions between political unity and national interests, as seen in the Eurozone debt crisis and Brexit. 5. Globalization and the future of IPE. The rise of globalization has transformed the international political economy. Supply chains now span continents. Financial markets react instantaneously to political events, and digital technologies enable new forms of economic interaction. Yet, globalization also generates backlash, seen in the rise of populist movements, protectionism, and anti-globalization sentiments. Key challenges for the future of IPE include climate change and sustainable development. The global economy must transition to sustainability, requiring coordinated political action and economic innovation. Technological change and digital currencies, AI, automation, and blockchain are reshaping labor markets, finance, and state control. Geopolitical rivalry and decoupling. Strategic competition between major powers U.S. China could lead to economic fragmentation and new alignments. Global inequality and development bridging the wealth gap between and within nations remains a moral and political imperative. Conclusion. The field of international political economy provides a comprehensive framework to understand how global politics and economics are inextricably linked. Political power shapes economic policy, while economic interests influence international relations, whether analyzing trade disputes, financial crises, development strategies, or global governance. IPE helps us grasp the whole